Human resources employees. What are your best HR nightmare stories? Came in to work early for a morning shift, work in an industrial lab. Heard noises from the back corner of the office portion of the building but can't make out what they are because of distortion. Head that way to see what was going on as I was the only one there, so I thought, at 3 a.m. See my lab manager having sex with the district manager, her boss, while the HR rep for the district is sitting there, enjoying the view. I NOPED and went to the lab and tried to forget what happened. Had one I heard about. To set the scene, executive boardroom just before start of business. There is a meeting booked by high-level officers in the company meeting clients first thing that morning. The admin in charge of setting up is notorious for being early to make sure meeting setup is perfect and everything goes seamlessly. She walks in on a naked man on the table. Thinks but is not entirely sure someone else just slipped out. She freaks out and naked man is canned. He was even a contractor, not full-time. The suspicion is he was not as fast to get dressed as the person he was having sex with. Rumor says it was an exec who knew full well that the admin would be in earlier than expected and used the incident to shed a now inconvenient lover. Surprisingly, the naked man continued to insist he was alone and doing naked yoga to the end. Glad you all could make it to this meeting. Now, let's discuss my current salary. I really feel as though I am not being compensated for my level of knowledge. Especially considering my most recent lab discoveries. Saw a guy blatantly lie in his recruitment form. Watching him fill it out in front of me. It was total bollocks. Apparently he was 15th in line to the throne. Went to Eton. Studied at Oxford and served in the army for 9 years after training at Sandhurst. Not bad for a 21-year-old. Who had in fact spent 3 years in a young offenders institute. Battling a drug problem. Had a former co-worker who was an impulsive liar. He was 24 years old and the stories he told of how many years he did this and that often added up to longer than he's been alive. And none of it fit together anyway. Why do people think they can get away with that? My dad ran into similar stuff weirdly often at his job. People love to lie about military service and turning "I attended a free evening lecture at Harvard" into "I attended Harvard." He occasionally reported the really egregious ones but was nearly always told that the places wouldn't bother doing anything about it as long as the applicants didn't forge documents or forge communication. The U.S. Army in particular said it's not worth it because it's so common. It'd be like going after everyone who tells a drunken embellished story at the bar. I mean, you could kinda claim you're the 15th in line to the throne if everyone except 14 people before you are an illegitimate heir for whatever reason. If you have any English blood, or are we talking about like fucking Iceland, in which case he may not have been lying, then you're most likely somewhere in the line of succession. I'm a quarter Russian, so fuck you, I'm the rightful heir to Tsar Nicholas II because reality can be whatever I want. Disclaimer, my knowledge of royal succession may or may not be based on Game of Thrones. My friend was doing hiring for a staffing agency during college. A guy who we went to high school came in looking for a job. He told the candidate that he had 2 jobs. One paid $10 an hour and the other paid $11. The only thing was that the $11 an hour job requires a drug test. And if you fail the drug test you can't get either. He said that he wanted the $11 an hour job. Now we knew him well enough to know that he liked smoking. So my friend reiterated the drug test fail rule. Dude said he was good on Friday to take the test Monday. Come Monday he took the drug test. Pissed hot for weed, cocaine, amphetamines, and some other shit that gets out of your system in approximately 48 hours. I know this opinion is super unpopular on Reddit. But guys like this dude are exactly why I won't work anywhere that doesn't have pre-employment drug testing. There are some guys I work with who I know go home and smoke. And that's fine. Because they're not high at work. But when they were trying to get the job, they made the choice to prioritize having a job over getting fucked up. They stayed clean a couple of weeks and passed the test. And now that they have the job, they prioritize staying sober at work. Because they can. They're able to not be a slave to their desire to get messed up. Pre-employment drug testing keeps the real problem druggies out. but doesn't really affect the casual enthusiast. If you use drugs on a repeated schedule for a long time, the used substances stay longer in your system. For example, if you smoke weed every day for a couple of months, it takes 2 weeks to get all the compounds out of your urine and even longer to get them out of the blood, about 2 months. I work in recruitment, so not exactly our. A guy had applied for a job that required a DBS check, police check. He filled the DBS and all his other checks flew through. The DBS came back as he had committed a crime in the past. Now on our end only the guy who will be applicant's manager and a senior in our department can see the DBS result. He called the department unhappy the job had been withdrawn. He then sent a long email in begging for another chance. He said when he was 17 he beat 2 women up, then threatened the cops with a gun. We're in the UK, so guns are pretty rare, especially in the 1970s. He went into detail about the attempted rape. This dude wanted a job in a hospital. It's a no-mate. Same here in the US. If there's even a whiff of a sex crime, there's no way in hell you're working in a hospital. When I switched to the medical branch in the Army, that's the only background check they did was for sex offenses. My friend who worked in HR told me about her old job where the boss had drilled a hole from his office through to the ladies' changing rooms and was perv whacking it every chance he could get. They found out because someone saw the light through the hole as he took the cover off for a peek. He denied everything and they had to take a DNA sample from the carpet under the hole, which confirmed it was a him and B that he had indeed been whacking away. I had a friend working a GM when HR thought it was a good idea to test everyone on the skill set needed for their department regardless of how long they were in their position. Long careers, 15, 20, 25 years, were ruined because even though they worked there for a long time with a long string of great performance reviews, they didn't pass the test that measured what HR thought was required for the department. Say you're a materials expert working in a design department. You may know barely enough in the CAD system to draw a cylinder. On the other hand, given a cylinder, you can whip out all the properties that cylinder would have if it were made from aluminum, cold-rolled steel, fiberglass, etc. You'd be out of your job because HR said you had to have a certain level of CAD expertise even if it wasn't relevant to your role in the design process. Long careers, 15, 20, 25 years, were ruined. Usually, management does this specifically to get rid of old-timers so they can hire new grads for way cheaper. This almost invariably results in crappier work being done, and management getting raises. Doesn't surprise me. Had GM as a client and every person I interacted with were collectively the worst people I've ever had to work with in my entire career. Except for one guy who was really good at his job and was fired within a month because of something outside of his control. Knew a weird dude who would sometimes do all-nighters in the office. A lady got there early one day, around 6:30 a.m., and found the guy masturbating to porn at his cubicle. Crazy thing is, he wasn't fired. I guess he was good enough at working that they just moved him to another department. I used to work in a cubicle farm. I worked an odd shift. Started 4 a.m. and left when I was done with my work. I'd be one of the only people there until around 8 a.m. There was usually one other guy there as early as me. I was a software engineer working in an editorial business. We had porn images in our database. It wasn't abnormal to have a porn site up because we would have to index those and have captions and images for various porn films. This wasn't the focus of the business. It was just something that occasionally had to be done. This one guy would start every morning slowly scrolling through porn images in our database on the other side of the cubicle farm. I could see it when I walked by to my desk. A professor I had in college displayed porn while proctoring an exam. He didn't know the projector behind him was on. Wasn't fired. Had tenure. Think he even won cash cause he sued that they tried to fire him. Ask a Manager is a good blog to read for these. Like a boss who asked his employees to donate an organ to his family. https://www.askmanager.org/2016/04/our-boss-will-fire-us-if-we-don't-sign-up-to-be-dash-html. This went way beyond asking, and it was far more than a kidney. https://www.americantransplantfoundation.org/about-transplant/living-donation/living-liver-donation/. That example could go either way. If my kid needed a kidney I couldn't give her, I'd ask everybody. I'd ask employees, Facebook, friends of friends, strangers. At a certain point I'd hand out flyers at universities. An otherwise excellent boss might get humbled by a sick kid. https://abcnews.go.com/news/york-mum-fired-donating-kidney-boss/story id equals 161956991 closing square bracket opening parenthesis https://abnews.go.com/news/york-mum-fired-donating-kidney-boss/story id equals 161956991 closing parenthesis. That actually wasn't the one I was looking for. There was one I read where the employee donated to the boss. The boss then started giving them shit, maybe fired, can't quite remember, for taking too long to return to work. Even though it takes a donor longer to recover than the recipient. My company used to give branded gifts to our clients. One employee volunteered to drive one about an hour away, and he took another employee with him. What he didn't tell anyone is that he didn't have a license. His car was unregistered. And his brakes were bad. So inevitably his brakes failed while trying to stop at an intersection. And he totaled his car. Thankfully no one was seriously hurt. But he got into trouble when the cops came. This is an HR nightmare because no one from HR stopped him before he could go. Are you in the States? Curious what your laws are like where you're at, because where I am, you need to have all sorts of paperwork filled out to make deliveries using your personal car for work purposes. Not crazy per se, but dumb and annoying. The HR team here recently rebranded themselves the People Team, presumably to seem more friendly. I just enjoy the implication that they're saying all the other teams in the business aren't people. My favorite was the dude who would have meetings with his boss via camera. He was remote, and while they discussed his abysmal performance, he would have naked women get up from his bed and walk around. He was told this was inappropriate several times. Continued. We fired him for fraud. A separate issue that was like a Tarantino film but gives too much away here. I worked third shift from home in bed when I was living with a previous girlfriend. I could see that theoretically happening to me, but I never did a video conferencing. Only audio. Then again, I was good at my job and not an idiot, so yeah. We had a guy in one of our stores submit a grievance to us about how we were discriminating against him because we were giving a female 7 months pregnant colleague some extra breaks. She had a medical note confirming the reasonable adjustments needed so she could sit down for an extra 5 minutes every so often because he was unable to get pregnant, so could not take advantage of the same extra breaks. Didn't really know where to start with that one. To be fair, we ran the numbers after a lawsuit and noticed women get an average of just over 3 weeks of vacation time. We give 3 weeks starting and 5 weeks after 3 years, while almost a fifth of the male workers weren't allowed a single day off in the previous year. Vacation inequality is a huge problem. I'm in the weird middle between the two since I'm not married or have kids, so I'm not allowed any time off despite being a woman. Manufacturing. Long story short, the company uses some pretty dangerous equipment and machines. The manufacturing floor and warehouse had started to have some safety issues, so they decided to start doing random drug tests. 60% failed, including the best friend of the owner. This same person was responsible for several of the safety issues mentioned above and was directly responsible for 2 people being injured while on the job due to negligence on his part. So what did HR do? Nothing. The owner was one of the people that failed. As someone who has worked in manufacturing for 20 years, I would say that's pretty typical. The catch is, how many of those people just smoked pot on their own time and came to work totally sober? I have a question for HR. When I was working for an assisted living, hospice facility, workers would leave their shift without checking on numerous residents, leaving them soiled and in the same clothing for 2 days. I reported it to HR and they did nothing about it. Why would you choose not to do anything about that sort of situation? In the end, I had to quit. I was going home upset daily. If in the US there are many agencies that would love to know about this. If it's particularly egregious, consider contacting the police if they would be interested in investigating any elder abuse law violations. Guy got chick hooked on meth. She started going around having sex with a lot of people. Drugs were done in the building. All parties got fired and the chick ended up on Springer after a few months to prove to her ex that the kid was his and not one of the other 5 guys she was having sex with. One place I used to work, one of the upper management guys who was in charge of the warehouse would hop on the forklifts and do donuts. He had colon cancer and was always having surgeries to remove another section of colon, so he had a colostomy bag. He would squeeze air out of his colostomy bag while he was doing donuts on the forklifts. It would waft this god-awful stench everywhere. Everyone thought it was hilarious and would immediately run outside for a smoke break until the scent dissipated. The smell was bad enough it made a coworker puke. Also had another manager there eat 10 sacks of White Castle sliders for lunch. He ate the last 10 sack on the toilet. I have no idea how he could eat with the sounds and stenches he was emitting from his other end. It sounded like someone trying to drown Donald Duck in a puddle while tooting a tuba. No one went into the bathroom for the rest of the day. Quote, "It sounded like someone trying to drown Donald Duck in a puddle while tooting a tuba." This has got to be the most evocative sentence in this whole thread. Thank you for making me giggle uncontrollably in the stall. I work for a general contractor's office. So many uncomfortable actions that my boss acknowledges he's doing but refuses to change. One being that he sends any of our guys that are injured on the job to get checked out and treated by his chiropractic girlfriend, who then gives him their full medical report. The company then pays her. Just a big no. Once witnessed a manager of a company try to invite kids to a casino-themed party. When he asked why, HR had to explain to him, "I didn't think it was appropriate to invite children. Since it's there's gambling and alcohol. It's in our dangerous warehouse. It's a school night. And Hooters is catering. And is that enough? Should I keep going?" We had to terminate someone after 8 days of employment for very serious misconduct issues including sexual harassment. When I notified the employee, he started threatening me, the manager, and the entire company. He went on to send threatening emails to the VPs and other senior leadership threatening a lawsuit. His manager was concerned for her safety and the company had to hire additional security. Come to find out that the guy we terminated had recently sued his previous employer. This whole thing is still happening, so I don't have an ending to this nightmare yet. Happy Thanksgiving.